And for some of the stocks moving in the pre-market, we welcome in our senior markets correspondent, Caroline Woods, live from the New York Stock Exchange. Caroline, thanks for joining us, of course. Microsoft is up. Alphabet is lower in the pre-market following a New York Times report on search engines. What's the latest with that?
Hey there, good morning, Renita. I can't believe it's snowing in Chicago. We only have rain, which I was bummed about this morning, but I guess it could be worse if I was in Chicago. But yes, looking at Microsoft and shares of Alphabet this morning, as you said, moving in opposite directions in the pre-market. We know that that Microsoft is giving Google a run for its money in the AI arms race, but it looks like it could be extending into its core search business as well. And that's because Samsung is actually considering, or reportedly considering, replacing Google for Microsoft's Bing as the default search engine on its devices, given its recent AI technology advancements. This has Google employees in a state of panic, according to the New York Times, saying they were shocked when they learned about this development last month. The switch could potentially risk an estimated $3 billion in annual revenue. So just to kind of put that into perspective, according to IDC, Samsung shipped about 260 million smartphones in 2022. All of those had Google search engine on the devices. So this could be a big change that could cost the company a lot of money. Of course, Google is racing to build an all-new search engine with AI technology. Also, according to the Times, it's looking to update its current engine with some of those AI features. Also important to note, a similar contract with Apple will be up for renewal this year. That's tied to an estimated $20 billion. So definitely a threat for Google. Shares are down about 3.6% in the pre-market. Taking a look at shares of Microsoft, they're up about 1.6%. So we'll have to see how this plays out in terms of, it always, Google became the verb, right? It was like, they were king in terms of search engine, but Microsoft seems to be catching up. Definitely in the AI space, seems to be the winner, but we'll have to see how this all plays out in the search engine space.
I don't think anyone would have guessed it, right, that Bing could even ever become a huge competitor to Google, right? But is there any kind of time frame that the New York Times gave on when you could start to see Microsoft eat into some of Google, Alphabet's market share when it comes to search engines?
We'll have to see based on these contracts. So as I said, the contract's up for renewal for Apple and for Alphabet's Google. So we'll have to see. I don't have the exact date for that, but based on how Google shares or Alphabet shares are moving this morning, it's definitely, at least investors are looking at it as a real threat. For a long time, we wouldn't have expected that Bing could kind of give Google a run for its money, but as these AI developments have been advancing and Microsoft became the front runner with its ChatGPT technology, I think that's been the bigger concern for companies like Alphabet, especially Alphabet, that for 25 years it's really reigned supreme, and that it could, kind of chip away at some of that market share.
Oh, absolutely. So we'll definitely keep our eye on that. Meanwhile, there's some action happening, some M&A action specifically in the healthcare space with Merck. Walk us through what's happening.
Yes, it's M&A Monday today because Merck is actually acquiring Prometheus Biosciences for $200 per share in cash. That's a deal valued at approximately $10.8 billion. And that $200 per share represents over a 75% premium to Prometheus's closing price on Friday. We knew that Merck was hunting for deals. They said so themselves. It's really looking to add to its therapeutics portfolio, add new products to their pipeline, especially ahead of 2028 when its key cancer drug, Keytruda, loses its patent protection. So Prometheus is where it's adding right now. It's developing a drug, Prometheus is, to treat immune diseases like Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. It had $7 million, or about $7 million, $6.8 million in sales last year, has a market value of more than $5 billion. So in terms of timeline, the deal is expected to close in this year's third quarter, pending regulatory and, of course, shareholder approval. Merck CEO called Prometheus an important building block. So just taking a look at shares, Merck actually is flat in the pre-market. A lot of times we see that the buyer shares are lower, but Merck is basically flat. Meanwhile, Prometheus shares up about 70% ahead of the open, trading around $193.55. So below that $200 per share offer price, but inching closer to it. I do also want to point out there's some other news as well on in terms of the pharma space.
Sure.
Merck and Moderna also just got some positive news from a mid-stage cancer vaccine trial. Moderna's cancer vaccine helped prevent relapse and death by about 44% among high-risk melanoma patients when it was combined with Merck's Keytruda cancer drug. The trial showed about 79% were alive and cancer-free at 18 months, compared to 62% of patients who only received immunotherapy. Doesn't appear to be giving either stock a boost in the pre-market. As I said, Merck shares basically flat, and when you take a look at Moderna shares, those are basically flat in the pre-market as well. But some positive mid-stage trials results there as well that could potentially move shares today. We'll have to keep an eye out. Doesn't appear to be the case today.
We will see. And so that is positive news for Merck, because the patent on Keytruda will expire at the end of the decade. And so it's been looking for a deal. But how high is the likelihood that Merck will have to deal with a counter offer, a counter bid for Prometheus?
You know, I haven't read any reports that that's going to be the case. I think the big question will be, will they receive shareholder and regulatory approval? We know that the regulatory space in terms of M&A can be a bit strict, but I haven't seen that there's risk of, I mean, there's always risk, of course, but I haven't seen any reporting on counter offers.
Okay, good. I guess it's good for them, right? Caroline Woods, thank you so much. We'll see you later on today.